Hi everyone, it's Raina. So this video is if your sun is in Cancer and you have Scorpio rising. Wow, that's double water. So the first thing we can say about this combination is that it is very emotional. And yet, as much as the sign of Cancer is not afraid to be emotional in a very open way, when you have a Scorpio as a rising sign, that could change a little bit because the rising sign can be your demeanor, especially when you are on the younger side. And maybe by the time you're ending your 20s, you are more open emotionally, or like the Cancer um, influence, which is ruled by the moon. And in astrology, the moon is associated with our emotions. So let's start by talking about that Scorpio rising. The rising sign is the cusp of the first house of the self, and this can include how a person looks. So oftentimes you can see that influence of the rising sign in how the person dresses, their features. And with Scorpio, they always talk about those piercing eyes that really, um, can make people feel uncomfortable, can make them feel exposed. And this can also extend itself to how you are able to read others. You may be a very perceptive individual who can kind of immediately size somebody up and kind of figure out what makes them tick. And so this can give this combination a lot of emotional intelligence where you really understand why people do what they do. So psychology is a natural for the sign of Scorpio, but I would also say all the water signs have a natural affinity for anything that deals with the emotions. So whether it's a straight on psychologist or another type of therapist, you could definitely be that kind of person who is able to um, excel in being a healer. That's how I ultimately see a good therapist, is that they're helping people to understand their emotional reactions and be able to function at a higher level. And so there's going to be a natural empathic nature with this combination. And I would say with Scorpio rising, the tendency is to have your guard up because Scorpio is a secretive sign. And this is due to the nature of Scorpio and the house that it rules in astrology, which is the eighth house, which can be the shadow self, um, that which lies beneath the surface, which tends to be where all the shame, things that are shrouded in secrecy. It's because of shame. It's because something is not right. The seedy underbelly of life. And this may be something that you had to deal with in one um, form or another growing up. You may have had something in your family of origin that was where you had to keep secrets. A common example is addiction from the family of origin, and because you have these two water signs, that can even be enhanced. So, for instance, alcoholism which is one of those things, but it doesn't have to be that. It could be other kinds of addictions too. One of the things is the reason for this is that the rising sign can be a facade. So for Scorpio, it's more of a poker face. It's more of like you can't tell what I'm experiencing because I have been told that I can't tell anybody what is really going on in my life. Another thing that could have happened is abuse. And of course, abuse takes different forms. I think that sexual abuse is the one that I particularly associate with Scorpio because the eighth house that Scorpio rules can be about sex as well. Um, and oftentimes there is this secrecy that happens because of that, and that can really um, create this pattern in the person's life altogether. Whatever has gone on, it can just be something that the person does not really share very much of themselves. Because another facet of this is that Scorpio is really wanting power. And somehow Scorpio has decided that by other people knowing your weakness, that can put you in danger. Now, I know that you are not a Scorpio, that is not your sun sign, but it is going to be a strong influence, I believe, when you are under the age of 30. And so you may be more scorpionic um, up until then. Another thing that I want to mention is that overall, I feel that men tend to be more secretive emotionally than women. And I think male water signs can really be like this because they may feel very vulnerable. The, the fact that they are emotional in their basic nature and they don't like that. So it's almost like overcompensating because I always feel like the water sign males tend to be maybe the most macho out of all the signs. That hyper masculinity. And actually, the water signs are feminine signs, but people don't understand about masculine and feminine energy. They think that it has to do with how they look or how they move and behave. No, it has to do with whether you are more passive or whether you're more active, whether you're more introverted or extroverted, these kinds of things. And so a man who has this combination is very likely going to be quite the homebody. You may love to cook because Cancer, I think Cancer might be connected to the stomach region uh, in the anatomy. I'm not quite sure. I know sometimes it's the chest. And there is a there but there you might have a lot of those tendencies to be very domestic or domesticated, but you still kind of hold your feelings inside. And so this can pose a problem when you're in relationships because other people need to know not only what you're feeling right now, but the experiences that you've had. And the more you can risk that vulnerability and what other people may do with that information, and you don't care about it, the stronger I feel you're going to be. A lot of times, I have found that water signs in general do not really share with people, like even their children, a lot of what happened to them when they were growing up. And it can be because there was trauma involved and it affected them very deeply. and they don't want to relive it. They don't want to make it alive by letting, other people know about it. They don't want to talk about it. But really, it can be quite healthy to do so. And that is, one of these things that is kind of a paradox because you are a natural healer and you are naturally perceptive of other people's pain, and yet you may not be forthcoming with your own. So, this is something to look at because in relationships, you really want to have that close bond with somebody. And if you're not sharing all of you, that's going to be difficult. And I think at a very subtle level, other people will realize that you're withholding something. But like I said earlier, I do feel that as you get older, you may be more, you may feel more confident in being able to share and not fear what, that other person's going to use that information against you, and that they will understand how you are. In terms of professions, I've already touched upon therapy, the other healing arts for sure, being an artist of some sort, whether it's a performer like a an actor, a the water signs can, it's like channeling. They can really get into characters and become them very very easily because water is very impressionable. But also any kind of performance you probably would excel in. You may have other artistic gifts. Maybe you are a painter or some other kind of a sculptor or something like that. And the healing arts, in addition to being a therapist, maybe you sense energy. So Reiki, shamanic healing might be a very strong pull because it deals with the kind of scorpionic themes of like transformation and personal power, sovereignty. So that might be something that you really love. Wiccan, of course, because, I think of the Scorpio and the witch and all of that. But that's when I say shamanism, all the earth or indigenous religions, that kind of thing, that are very much about your personal transformation, as opposed to the more like laid out types of organized religions. The eighth house that Scorpio rules is much more open ended in a sense for your own personal path. You may be a writer and you have a vivid imagination. That's also a possibility. A teacher. I think especially with younger children, because Cancer is the mother and you can have that maternal urge. And certainly I think Scorpio has the nurturing tendency. All the water signs have that. In love, I think that you have a great capacity for devotion. I think that the biggest hurdle to overcome is over excess in emotion, maybe a tendency to be possessive of a partner, to be smothering. And this can be relationships with your children. It doesn't have to be just a significant other, any kind of relationship. There could be like a heavy-handedness because, the water, drowning people in your emotions and being very clingy and that sort of thing. But other people it depends on the other person. There may be some people who really enjoy how deeply you love. So, pick your significant other very carefully, because if you're with the wrong person, they may see it as an affront that you are like that and think that you're trying to control them. And, truth be told, there may be a little bit of that going on because um, both of these signs, I think, are very, fearful of abandonment. And so that's where, the Scorpio is a fixed sign, and it tends to be very um, steadfast in its love. Scorpio is an extreme sign, so it either loves somebody deeply, or it may be indifferent to somebody. But with Cancer, it's more of a situation of being very sentimental, being very, I would say almost aggressive, because Cancer is a cardinal sign. So it really has a tendency to like go after what it wants and try to keep that person close to them. And depending on that other person, like I said, some people, they are very sensitive to being smothered, having their freedom threatened in a certain way. They want to be able to come and go as they please, and they don't like the kind of emotional demands sometimes that this combination can make. And with the rising sign of Scorpio, because you may tend to distrust others, you may assume the worst of a partner, and that could lead to all kinds of accusations that are not real. Your mind could play tricks on you. So you have to be careful with that kind of behavior, because you could drive a person away. And, that becomes a self fulfilling prophecy. So, if you're, I was going to say, God help you if your moon is in a water sign too, but I'm just joking. But I mean, that would really be something else. That should be something to look at as well, to see what your emotional nature is like. Because who knows? You might have your moon in Aquarius, and then you would be very unpredictable in how you react to various situations. And sometimes you might blow hot and cold if you have like an air sign moon, Gemini, Libra, Aquarius. But anyway, so that's what I have for you. I hope that this resonated. If you would like a personal reading with me, you can click on the link below for more information. Thanks for listening. Take care. Bye.